Welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Michael Sacca, president of Crew. In today's episode, we're going to talk about finding talented employees and 2 ways to attack any job.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performers Podcast with your host, Thor Conklin. Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy. Did you have to make any changes to the team after you took over?
Yeah, we did do some. We downsized a little bit. And we started hiring people in key positions where we were a bit light. So we brought on like a UX designer, which is something we never had. We always functioned, pretty much like design it as you build it.
Yeah.
And so now we're finally stepping back and saying, is this the right thing to design? Is this the right thing to build? Should we even bother putting this into production? Instead of making edits in production to try to fit it in. And so that was one of the big changes that we wanted to bring into the product side. And then we focused from marketing, because we've traditionally done a ton of content marketing, into growth. And so now we're focused on SEO and SEM. And so we've had to hire some of the expertise in those areas that we didn't have before when we were solely focused on content.
You know, I think every business owner struggles with hiring. No one likes to fire. I don't know if there's an easy way to fire people, or should there be. But no. Hiring, making a great hire, it's so important. Any tips about how to find and hire great people?
It's all in the interview process, as we know, right? And I think it's being very direct in the interview and asking very detailed questions. We have people that come across as very qualified. In their resume, they can even present at a high level very well. But I always start to ask what specifically they would do for our business, right? Like, Crew, you've seen the website, you must have some idea of why you're applying to us. So what would you do? What are your ideas? How do we push this forward? It's not just about being qualified, but it's about being qualified for our industry and having a passion for it. And so the best candidates that we have are those people that actually step back from that meeting and either schedule another follow-up or send an email with, this is what I would do. If you gave me the opportunity, this is how I would attack the market. And those I find are often the best candidates. And there's a lot of people that will do an interview, they'll interview well, but then when you hire, you don't get the same performance. And I think it's really about trying to find people that are passionate, not about just having a job, but having a job doing what your business does. So that's one of the biggest things that we struggle with when we're hiring, is finding the right question and the right level of detail to get to, so that you can tell whether this person is going to perform. We also do a 1-month trial. Yeah. So we don't necessarily just hire and now you're full time. We do a 1-month trial, so both of us can see, is this a good work environment for you, and is this going to work for us?
Yeah, I do the same thing. It's 2 weeks, but yes, I think that's absolutely necessary. I love that question. What can you do for our business, or what would you do for our business?
It's a tough one.
I know, but it's a world class, and really
it's a job.
That's why I'm hiring you.
Right.
What are you going to do? We're actually in the process of designing an online course, which is 52 weeks, which is how to think and act like the boss. Because I find so many CEOs, they're like, look, I've got the skill sets to run the organization. If I could just clone myself, if I could just, get a pill and I could give it to the staff and say, okay, this is how I want you to act like you're running the place. Be creative, get ahead of it. So.
And, when I came on working under Mikkel, I always viewed my role as to make his life easier, because he was essentially, I was taking over part of his job. He was spending 20% of his time doing the sales while he was doing everything else. So my job was to take that away from his worry and his mind, right? So that he didn't have to think about that at all. And when you think about your job like that, rather than sitting and waiting, okay, Mikhail, what do I do? What do I do? Two very different ways of attacking a job. And I think the most successful people, if you want to move up, if you are working inside of an organization, or if you want to hire people that take on that mentality, you can do that during the interview phase. But we have a lot. We've had a lot of people who simply want a task list, and there's only so many positions at a small organization that you can really afford to have people who need to work in that way.
Yeah, that's not the type of employee that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Run with it. Even if you make a mistake, I'm cool with that. Just move the ball down the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unlike the Atlanta Falcons did last night. Oh my God. I'm from Atlanta. I mean, that was brutal. Oh,
sorry.
I'm going to do a podcast on that.
Game, but, yeah.
How to lose everything in 15 minutes.
Right.
What a disaster. Let's talk about partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a lot of experience in this area. How are you using partnerships? How have you used partnerships? And how can entrepreneurs use them?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people use them wrong, right? So I think we often go out and pursue a partnership that's within our best interest. And so I often go out and try to find the partnership that's in their best interest. So what can crew, or whoever I'm working for, but crew, what can we do to solve a problem for you? And in turn, we will get a benefit. And so, we have several different types of partnerships that we've designed, be it for staffing or for, projects. So like people send us projects and we send them a referral, more of like an affiliate partnership. And then deeper integrations where we manage a subset of developers for them. So imagine you're a big platform and you have an expert community. We can actually manage that and be a little bit more hands-on. And in each of those, there's different things that are needed to make it successful. And so what we found is when the most successful partnerships are where the benefit is mutual, but we've entered the conversation simply trying to solve a problem for them. And we've never had a problem finding the benefit for ourselves, obviously in the discussion. But I have found that when I work with other people come in and try to do partnerships for crew, oftentimes there's a lot of very big ideas, but there's no mutual benefit when we're looking at why would that company want to work with us.
Makes total sense. It's just like selling a product, selling a service, or dating. You've got to go into that relationship figuring out what you can give, not get.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant. I got to ask about crew versus Upwork. What are the differences? Why would one person go one way versus another?
So I think Upwork is great for smaller tasks and kind of slightly down market. I guess sometimes design, sometimes development, sometimes a little bit more like data entry and those lower level skills that don't command such a higher dollar value and don't need as much creative control. And so what we've done at Crew is we've really tried to match a project budget that's over $75 an hour. And so when you come to Crew, you are paying a bit more, say, per hour or for the entire project, but you're working with someone who is in the top 3% of the freelance economy. And so that's how we see it as, kind of quality over quantity. And it's for people who have a significant need. And but not to say that Upwork can't do that as well. I think it's a slightly different model where we're a lot more hands-on and we actually find you the people that are available and would be a good fit. And Upwork is an open marketplace, and they both have their advantages.
I also noticed that on your site, you have a calculator, at least for apps. So if you want to develop an app, you can go through, pick the different items that you want or don't want in the app, and it'll give you a pricing structure. I think that was awesome. Is it just for apps, or is it for other projects as well?
Apps, websites, and logos.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah, I really found that very, very helpful.
Yeah, well, we found that there's a lot of people that are just very confused as to how much things should cost to get a high, to get someone who is at a high expertise level to work on it. We see applications where you want to build Uber for $500. It's just not going to happen. And so we wanted to put some tools out there so people could get a better idea when they're budgeting. How much is my idea actually going to cost? And if I want to take this to market, how much capital do I need?
Great function. Let's talk a little bit about co-founders. So many people are thinking about bringing people on. They have an idea. They want to bring on additional co-founders. Give some advice in that area.
I think you vet them just like you would vet a dating partner, right? At Crew, there's 4 co-founders, and they all work really, really well together. They all have very distinct skill sets that they bring to the table, different opinions, and they've found ways to negotiate that. And so I think that type of discussion can be really, really productive. But if you're not really on the same page and you don't have that basic communication set up and you move a little bit too fast when you're bringing on a co-founder, there can be some serious issues. I've run into it where I brought a co-founder into an agency that I was building, and we were making money. So we didn't even think about the hard work. Were we on the same page? Who was going to run the company? What were our tasks? We just kind of shared our task, picked up whatever we needed, and ran with it. But the problem arose when the money wasn't there. And when we needed to go to market, who was the CEO? What were our titles? And when that communication broke down, so did our relationship and the agency itself.
Yeah, have it all planned out, have it all in writing before you start.
Got to do a little bit, right?
Yeah,
you don't have to plan everything, but you have to be on the same page as to what your goals are. And if you're not, there's going to be problems.
Yeah.
And when in this day and age, when we're talking about every idea being worth over $1 million, those conversations can be hard.
Yeah, and sometimes in the beginning, it's like, look, there's no revenue. It's just a concept. So let's just run with it. And then you start making money. Yep. Now it becomes serious. I was in a partnership where there were 3 of us. We each owned 33 1/3. Got to be one of the worst structures ever.
Yep.
Because you were constantly going behind somebody's back to get support on something to get it passed. And it was always flowing. 2 of the people don't even talk anymore. And they were good friends. They were great. Yeah. But it's like, it's like, okay, do you want to figure out how to sell the product, or do you want to sit down and start talking about the partnership agreement? Who's going to do what? If somebody gets divorced, if somebody dies. I mean, there's so many things you got to talk about and get established up front. And when there's no revenue, it's easy. When there's a lot, the conversation gets a lot tougher.
Yeah, and there's tons of templates out there that you can leverage, so what questions to answer. And it takes, a couple nights over a couple beers, and you could figure everything out.
Exactly. Otherwise, it's a couple months over attorneys' offices.
Right. And a lot more money.
It's like, look, come on, we're friends. They're like, screw you. There's $4 million in revenue. I can find new friends.
It's the truth. And I mean, there's other factors at that point, right? Greed and opportunity. And those are things that make that negotiation incredibly harder to bring to the table and have when one person sees, money, power, or opportunity, and you're the one standing in their way.
Yeah, and even if it's not that, you could all agree, but someone could say, look, I think we ought to move the company in this direction. And no, let's do this. Let's not monetize this yet and move in this direction. Let's build up our fan base. Let's build up our subscription base. So it could just be different views on how to run the business.
And that's what I ran into. Yeah. And if you don't have that person who's a dedicated CEO, which we didn't, we basically shared the role. When it came time to decide where does the business go, we were at a standstill.
All right, so we already established that having a partnership made up of 33 1/3 is not a good idea. What advice were you ever given that you thought it might be good advice, you actually implemented it, only to find out that this was really bad advice?
Well, man, there's a ton, right? There's a lot of bad advice out there. One thing that, the old adage of you can never go up or down in your pricing. I found that you could go up very easily when you're pricing your product, and not to really worry about it. Pricing is one of the hardest things, I think, to nail down when you're building a product. And I don't think there's any reason why you can't go up. In fact, we've gone up and we've never had a problem. I think some of the other structural components is like flat work. Oh, I forget the technical name for it, but it's when you have a flat organization, and it sounds really good. But if you don't have people who own areas of your business and own specific tasks, if you lose that accountability, things can go haywire really quick, or you can find yourself just kind of trudging along instead of really being able to take the reins and move the needle. And I've seen that in several companies where we've tried out some new models, and honestly, a little bit of hierarchy does go a long way.
Yeah, it's almost like those open floor plans as well. I've never understood those. I don't know how people get their work done. I know you can collaborate, easier when everyone's in this open space, but how about some like quiet time so I could think and actually get some stuff done?
I actually think the collaboration even is difficult in those open spaces, because you have this, like, everyone's listening in. So you lose that really honest conversation, especially when you're talking about ideas, things that you might feel embarrassed about, right? Like, I have this idea for our product. You don't always want to shout that out to the whole company. You're not even sure if it's a good idea. But those things can often come out in quieter spaces and smaller meeting rooms that you're not going to get on the floor of a giant organization. I agree. Like, the productivity is tough. And like in Germany, they've gone the opposite way, where they actually encourage everyone to have their own office, even no matter what level of the company that you're on.
Yeah, I like that idea. I like my solitude.
Yeah.
even if they're small, just make them out of glass.
Right. Just, and we found, like, at Crew, we have an open floor plan, but we also have a distributed team. So there's not always the whole team isn't in the office at any given time. Yeah. But people hang out in the conference rooms. They just set up their laptop, they have a meeting, the meeting's over, and they just stay in the conference rooms to continue working. And that seems to be like, because it's quiet, because it's enclosed, people feel more productive in there. And I don't even know if they necessarily are aware that they're doing it, but you see it happen all day long.
What's some of the best advice you've ever received?
So something that we're dealing with right now, right? Is what's the next step for Crew, and what our board always says is, optimize for what you want, right? And so especially when you have a lot of people coming to the table with ideas, and there's different options of which way you can go, having a clear plan and knowing that before you're entering a lot of these conversations, I think, is one of the most important things that I've had to keep in mind recently, which is to know where I want the company to go and optimize our conversations for that. And that's come in handy, because oftentimes you can get a bit of shiny object syndrome. And to prevent that, it's really knowing that it's having that personal time to know where you want to go and then go out and implement it.
Every peak performer that has ever lived or will live does one thing extremely well. They know how to take their ideas and execute on them. Ideas and knowledge are not power, but the ability to execute on them, that is real power. If you consider yourself a peak performer and really want to take your game to the next level and truly master the science of execution, I would like to send you some information about our upcoming event, Business Execution Summit. Simply take your phone and text the word BE Summit, one word, to 41411. And I'll send you some additional information on how to master the most important skill you will ever acquire for your life or your business. Thank you so much for listening today. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope you found today's show valuable. If you would like to receive these shows automatically to your phone or to your computer, simply go to iTunes and subscribe. after listening to several of his shows. If you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this helps us reach additional people and spread the message. If you're truly committed to taking your life to the next level and doing whatever it takes to become a peak performer, but something's holding you back, something is blocking your way, and you just can't seem to figure out what it is, send me an email to info@thorconklin.com, and I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you. We'll schedule a 15-minute discovery call. No obligation, no cost. I absolutely love to hear from the listeners, and if there's something I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that. Also, if you found something of great interest in today's show and you want to share that with your friends and family, simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin, click on the episode, hit the share button, and share it on your page. You can follow me at Twitter at Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. We're constantly adding new free resources, discussing additional tricks, tips, tools, and strategies on how to be a peak performer. Remember, I try to keep these episodes short so you can listen to them during dot time, doing other things, commuting, driving, walking, working out. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do. And until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day. That concludes part 2 of our interview with Michael Sacca. Please stay tuned later this week for the conclusion, part 3.